become a gaming evangelist, and how do you start creating your own gaming communities? And our somewhat qualified and underqualified, overqualified panelists will be giving their opinions on how to accomplish being a game evangelist or creating your own gaming communities, if our panelists don't mind introducing themselves.
Oh, I'm Kat, Kat DeShields. I am the PR and Partnerships Manager for Skillshot Media, which is a subsidiary of Hi-Res Studios. Before that, I was fortunate to work as a consultant for indie games for Novi Unlimited. And previous to that, I was a video games journalist for Launch Media Network. Before that, I really don't count as much because it was financial services communications, not as exciting as gaming, so I'm definitely glad to be on the other side of things. But I'm looking forward to sharing some tips, tricks, and best practices on how you can better connect with fans.
Hi, I'm Joe Casava. I am the Joe of Puzzles by Joe, and I'm here to sort of, I do things non-standard, so I'm the non-professional solo indie variation of how you build a community, sort of.
My name is Ron Jones, and I am a indie developer. Try to be an indie developer. I also work at Tripwire doing QA for them, and also I am the founder and organizer of the Indie Cluster, which is a local independent developer scene, kind of like a support group, if you will. We provide services and get discounts for developers so they can travel to different conferences, provide them with resources and basically a platform to help, do what they got to do to make their own game. And I'm also board member of the GGDA Atlanta chapter.
I'm Nar of Non-Limited. I started my company while I was in college in 2003. It's been around for a few years. I've done 4 releases so far, working on Fifth One and Crystal and Cauldron. I will be at Rose Conclave next Friday and Southern Friday right after that, so I've got a busy schedule coming up for me. And I kind of am one of those do-it-all type developers, so I'm kind of involved in everything going on for a while, seeing quite a bit, including your case.
All right, and I guess I'm moderator now. Nothing much about me. I'm Kimiko from Atlanta Gamer Life, and I enjoy playing video games. I'm very avid about embracing the community for game development and gamers, period. So simple as that. So as far as moderation goes, let's see what kind of questions. One of the questions that was asked, since Andrew wasn't here, is what inspired fans to evangelize for devs? Like, what inspired you guys to really get your gamer community? Like, actually, I want to know first, tell me about your gamer communities and what your audience is. Start with you.
Well, I am not an indie game developer, though I do love indie games very much, so that's kind of where my passion comes from. For Hi-Res, being a mid-tier developer, what works for them may not work for everybody else, but we got our start just like everybody else, and essentially that boils down to identifying communities that are interested in what you have, and then listening to that community. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna hit out of the park every single time you make an update or fix a bug or change something about your game, but always staying in touch with your community. That's kind of been the secret sauce of our success. We're constantly in a development cycle. Up until a couple weeks ago, Paladins would update every 3 weeks and Smite would update every 2 weeks, with some kind of new content. So not to say that you have to be as aggressive as that, but definitely keeping your community in mind. Taking feedback, knowing that, hey, there's still stuff that I can kind of work on or fix, and just including them in that journey. That's what really causes like a longevity in the relationship that you can develop with your fans.
Okay, so I grew my fan base as sort of an experiment. because it's not quite as important for a place like High Res that and so forth. So I manage it pretty much in small doses, but I think my secret sauce, if I have one, is what I would call service, an instant service. Tons of people, it started way back with, they were shocked that I even showed up on the Big Fish boards and talked to them. Evangelizing,
Yeah.
okay, that worked. But over time, I've built enough that, you know, I to tell a story is, if you look at my direct sales, which is a measure of how well I've done this, it's definitely gone up. So much so that I think last Christmas when I released this last game, I finally did a mailing list. I shot it out there, I set it up. A bunch of people were on beta from before, but again, it's just this connection. And I sold basically 300 copies of my game in the first month, which is about $3,000 worth, you know. And my website, I think the most I've ever made in a year was 4,000. So for me to do 3,000 in a chunk from my rabid fans showed me that at least I'd done something. And again, secret sauce, and this is what I want to leave you with, I'm going to shut up, is service. Is I get back to them quickly, I answer every email. If they leave me a message, man, I don't leave them hanging. And if they have any problem, you know, free game, I refund money all the time. If anybody complains, I offer to. Oh, and one last thing, a mark that I do this well, I've gotten about $800 in tips over the years and the highest one was 100. So I connected with some person at least that they thought, you know, Joe needs 100 of my money. So all I know is I have very rabid fans, but I don't do it well in mass because I don't pay for things. I don't have. It's all just me when I get a minute here and there. Go ahead. And but don't. I'm sorry. Don't. My point is, don't devalue that. The little bit. I wish I could do it more. I wish every day on Clutter I posted something, but I don't. I wish I was better. And if you are better at that, my belief is you'll get better results. That, you know, it's that consistency over time.
Yeah, there's definitely a science to it. That's probably, well, if I was to list off some of the things where I could do better at, that would be part of it. But I don't really like to blame my community, I guess. It's not my community. I mean, anything, group or anything that I may be a part of, it's like I'm a part of it. Whether I might have some kind of authority over it or you know, some kind of say so, but you know, I'm an indie developer first. How the organization got started, it was mainly a lack of a certain opportunity in the local development scene here. Basically, around the world, the indie development scene was growing and whatnot, and just, you know, trying to understand my own career and grow into my own. I basically took the resources around me and tried to come up with something that could satisfy not only myself, but something that is obviously needs to be alive. Fortunately, my lack of talent forced me to show my face more often than people may have wanted. So ever since I moved here, 13 years ago now, 12 years, I've been networking. I've tried to put my face in front of people, shaking hands and whatnot. Andrew Greenberg was actually one of my first game development teachers at the Art Institute. And ever since then, I've kind of always tried to show out for any of his events and stuff like that, and that thus being at the first siege and whatnot, and kind of having that consistency of trying to be active. And obviously that led to enormous opportunities just by that. And how the cluster got started, like I said, I was going through as far as me trying to be an indie dev, needing some resources and help with my own stuff, but realizing somebody knows how to do it in the community. I didn't necessarily know how to reach out to them. I didn't know how to get past that awkward phase of asking somebody and everything like that. on top of that, we needed to be able to show our stuff and generate some kind of community. So I kind of, adopted the business model of the Indie Mega Booth, compounded that with the opportunities that Andrew was offering at the time, because we needed kind of a local indie scene, and the Hustle kind of started as a successful proof of concept, and then we just kind of kept going, filling any and every kind of opportunity or any kind of need that the community needed. So hopefully we've been, experimenting with what we can do, and we're just trying to keep going and basically use that same attitude. Not necessarily focusing on money first or anything like that, focusing on what people need, how to provide a service, how to, generate, grow, and give back to the community. That's really what we try to do about that.
All right. Well, I started as how a lot of people are going to start, except for a different era back when indies had to either fight for store shelf space or for web portals, which, especially in 2003, was a very interesting time. And luckily, that model has since changed because it's very hard to deal with, especially for a budding indie company. From there, going through that first one, I started to figure out what it was I really enjoyed and providing to the game I built. Realizing I always provided some unique twists that really changed the genre. And I really enjoyed putting story in genres that just had no story or very little or poor quality storytelling throughout the course. And after the first one, I went on to Crystalline Cauldron, which became a real-time card game instead of a turn-based card game. So you're having to play with a deck of cards in real time and defend yourself against your opponent or the AI in real time, which is something a lot of card players just are not used to. And the story itself, I'll admit, looking back on it, it kind of fell flat near the end of that whole, okay, it's just a big bad guy that's a pop object more than an actual character. But it's one part of the learning experience, and from that I went on to Managed Shuffle, and that was the arcade experience that I was referring to earlier. Rhythmically interactive games, that's something Managed Shuffle still shines on, and being the only one with any actual story. There was DDR Supernova, which had a semi-story where you're meeting up with people, but it wasn't actually progressing the characters at all. It was just more about, oh, hey, I know you. Oh, hey, you're a dancer too. And there was no real interaction. It was just a kind of like what you see in like Street Fighter 2 and Street Fighter 2 Turbo of the, oh, there's just a quick dialogue and that's it. Whereas Managed Shuffle, it actually talks about the progression of Mantis going to Desmond, which was a dancing school where he would learn the different characteristics and practices of becoming a professional dancer. He would actually have to perform his finals in front of a teacher, and he would have to beat the teacher's test. And eventually you would get all the way up to going against the principal, who again would test you, and by that point you're having to go against character abilities, which was something else unique and Shuffle brought, where each character you selected had their own ability applied to the gameplay. And right now I'm working on Crystalline Cauldron. The story itself is something my fan base is still eager for, because they've gotten to the point where they can trust that I'm going to be putting a lot of heart and soul into it. I've been talking to a lot of my personal advisors on where it's going. Some of the guest fighters I've been having to communicate back and forth with their characters to make sure that I keep in character and in situations where that character will do. And that has been something that's really been evolving, and it's something that the community I have built up is just begging for it, but at the same time they know in the past of the, I'm going to make sure I get it right before I start revealing the details. I'm going to make sure it's solid so that there isn't this, oh, it was going left one week and now we have to go right and jump up through a building the next week. It would actually be pretty solid, and it will be fairly consistent with minor adjustments for feedback. So aside from that, I'm also bringing in ailments, a wide variety of special features, and all that to further expand the genre. But at the whole, players have been able to pick up Smash Brothers, hop in just fine, and yet still feel, oh, this does feel unique, and they are getting a special experience, and I will be showcasing it
Okay. Well, okay, so the next thing I want to get into is understanding you guys already like answered most of it, but I want to kind of, for each of your current projects, who's your audience and what are your two most effective means to reach them? Whether it be like a particular type of platform, social platform, or a convention style thing. What kind of things, like how do you reach your audience per se?
So, quick question. How many people in the room are working on a game or have put a game out there already by show of hands?
Woo!
I
1,
love
2,
it.
3,
That's
4,
awesome.
5, 6, 7,
Yeah,
8,
two. Okay.
9, 10, 11.
Excellent.
Got it.
So how many people in the room are fans of video games and are looking for ways to support communities?
Yeah.
Which everybody who's
Yeah,
developing a
woo.
game should love games too, man.
Hey, same amount.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna take off my high-res cap and put on a fan cap, you know, to kind of talk about some of the ways that me as an indie fan, how I engage with the games that I love, how I support upcoming communities. I'll throw some high-res stuff in there, but that's something different. And just like practical tips on like how you can really connect with somebody who looks like me or you or y'all, you know, in terms of building your community. So, what was your question? I said all that and it was like whoosh! I totally forgot what she asked.
Yeah, you got it typed though. Okay, so the question was basically, who in your current projects, who's your audience? Like, who's your community per se? And what are your two most effective means to reach your audience? Like social platforms or conventions or like these guys who are saying, yeah, you know, how would they with them building their community, what would they do? You know?
Right. So conventions are definitely good if you have the endurance, because it is a lot, you know, to be talking to people all day, you know, and kind of doing the same talking points and smiling and engaging. It can be exhausting, but it is very rewarding if done right. Social media is invaluable, you know, I think where like people like solicit like feedback on stuff. There's a whole bunch of them. There's one for every day of the week, you know, and they are specific to the indie community, you know, or the game development community. You know, so me as a fan, I'm like, well, I want to see some screenshots of some pretty games that are coming out sometime, you know, so I'll look at that hashtag and then boom, my timeline's full of stuff and I can just scroll and like and follow as I would like. Taking advantage of some campaigns. So I don't know if y'all know this, but this week is Love Indies Week. You know, so it's a whole thing set up by Fail Better Games. They made Sunless Sea. And from June 3rd until June 14th, like it's a celebration of indie games. You know, and as a fan, we are tasked with write reviews, leave them on Steam, you know, recommend games to your communities, to who you're talking to. You know, so there's a whole bunch of stuff like that's just inherently in social media that you can take advantage of for free. You know, so Facebook and their algorithms are kind of wonky. You know, they change, you know, according to what day of the week it is and what the weather feels like. And but that's also a valuable way to tap in, especially if you're focused on video content, GIFs, photos. Those do very well on Facebook. Instagram is also a great place for all of those things as well. Snapchat, take it or leave it. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally don't, but some people love it and it's worked for them. You know, so it's really about finding a platform that, one, fits the way you like to generate content, two, that doesn't take, you know, your heart and soul and your future firstborn kid to manage, you know, and three, you know, something that the people that you're trying to reach, they use regularly. You know, so that's, social media is definitely don't discredit it. If you don't like social media, I don't like social media. My job is to be on social media all day and I hate social media. You know, but there's still value to investing time in the things you can discover, the people you can meet, and the relationships that you can establish along the way if you just take some time to invest in these different platforms.
Okay, so my customer is the is what Candy Crush people will call the typical whale. It's my game is casual. Back in the day, in 2005, we used to talk about the year they discovered women want to play games. We used to talk about there were two models. One was called the Women Over 40 with Disposable Income. The Iowa Farm Housewife was another one, a lot of free time on her hands. Yeah, anyway, so the thing is, I always go where my customers are, and luckily I have a distribution model where I don't have to market, number one. So all I've done, in fact, I can't even have in my game, I can't have a link to my website. So I can't drive traffic that way. And what I did was I strongly brand both the name of the game, Clutter, and Puzzles by Joe. In fact, this last round, I actually went from having a logo to having my logo and the 7 prior games wrapped around in like a Brady Bunch, tic-tac-toe, because I wanted them, the first thing I wanted them to know about Puzzles by Joe is it's more than just one game. And that there's at least, if you like this game, there's, 7 other Clutters out there, right? And from day one, the very first thing they saw in my game was Puzzles by Joe, and the very last thing when they hit exit even, I would show them the Puzzles by Joe. Because everyone that's come to my website is somebody that found me out. They had to come and search. I wasn't allowed to have a button, so that's what I did. The other thing, so I have a pretty good website that's basically, it's more sales oriented. Someday I'd like it a little better at the facts, a little better at the Ask Joe or whatever, but it's not that great, but it's pretty easy to buy a game out there and see all the games. And then I have a Clutter page where when I get closer to, I interact with people, but when I get closer to a release, I'll start showing them snippets of the piece. And I really did that a lot for Clutter 1000. I showed them the Mahjong and the Smileys, etc. One of the things I did find that I want to leave you with this thought is one of the best tricks to engage people, because it works so much better than an ad, it works better than anything else I did. Ask them a question.
Yes.
And especially something that they can debate about. So occasionally I'll ask them, I want them to list their favorite Clutter games in order, and I also want them, actually since Clutter 3, my games have really been, Clutter 3 ended with this notion that the only way I make a better game is if the player, figures out how to give me feedback. I actually put that in a game. Someday I'll do the pretentious indie art scene and show them this game and go, that's the game, because this is like deep, But I affected enough people that they realize, that's why they think there's a real Joe, which there is. And they know they can go ask and give me feedback, and I listen. They know I listen, they see it in the next game, and Clutter is this game that, if you like even 75% of it, the last game had 1,000 puzzles in it, and you can play it to death. So even if they hate 25% of the game, they still like it. And they only get to actually play it for half an hour to an hour before they make a buy decision. So what I wanted to do was brand well enough so that if anybody really just searched, they would find Puzzles by Joe, which they do. So again, ask questions and brand your own product regardless of other things. I mean, some indies you get to put your links in the game. I don't get to do that. So. Right.
I think as a creator, hopefully, you're a fan of whatever medium that you're in. And I think that's a powerful, tool or a mindset to basically get your head in the mind of your own audience. I say that because, especially starting out, making anything is going to be hard, and you want to you don't want to have to learn something new just to learn something new. So
I'm the opposite of you with that, by the way.
well, you're smart.
No, but I'm just saying you're not making the game for yourself. It's both.
Right.
You want to make it. You want it to be passion.
Right. Well, when
but
it comes to a game, when it comes to a game, you want to know that you're doing it for people at the same time.
And you don't have to be your own audience for your game, necessarily.
No, you don't have to. But hopefully that you know who you're making it for, if that's the case, right?
Correct.
Right.
All I'm saying is, out of the 2 versions, I did 3.5 games for myself that made no money. 3.5 years, no money at all. And I said, you know what? I'm going to make a game that somebody else
it's definitely something to know. I was speaking from making a game and then starting this business. Because with the platform, the indie cluster basically, I don't know how much online visibility we have. I have noticed that the majority is word of mouth, which I think is definitely effective because me talking about it, people see my face associated with me and my brand, which you was talking about at the same time, as well as individuals' testimonies. Hey, Indie Cluster really helped us get into this con. Are we doing another space next month? That kind of thing, and it kind of spreads around. I believe that's how we got so branded locally, at least here. We want to basically continue that. However, I want to do better personally, obviously, right? So, indiecluster.com is the website. Everybody can go check that out. You got to use plugs whenever you can. So there's that. At the same time, you have links to, you want to be able to record and let people know what it is that you're doing, what it is that you're trying to do. But along with the online presence, I think is probably the most important. I mentioned, knowing your audience because a lot of people are going to be on different platforms. I believe when it comes to game development, I've seen Twitter probably work the most efficient, just because news travels fast. The smaller it is. And also, I believe Instagram is worked pretty well as far as that, visual category. Facebook, not necessarily so much, but when it comes to building kind of a community of engagement, it definitely works in that sense. More so recently, I've seen, especially here locally, a lot of the devs have started their own Discord channels, because that's a lot. That's where a lot of the gaming community is starting to move to. That and Steam and really anything, a lot of the game forums. I used to know a lot of them, like places like TickSource and self-help forums and stuff like that. I was terrible at forums, but you really gotta be consistent to be a part of those communities. But basically wherever you are, wherever you see the games that you love and that you feel like you're making something just like it, basically mimic that. Especially YouTube. YouTube has become a really good one. A lot of people use video blogs to get in touch with the community, get feedback, and let people see what they're working on. A lot of people really love that method and whatnot. By the way, shout out to Looking for Heels. They're at E3 right now, getting their Discord on and popping. I had to turn up notifications because
You're on E3 right now?
I think so. Yeah.
See you in the
I'm not
Megabooth
crazy.
again?
I'm not sure where, but I know my phone is blowing up because they're getting a bunch of followers. So, yeah. So basically, you kind of have to feel around, do what you got to do, and connect with your audience, your community. Conventions are probably the best way, or at least that personal interaction, that engagement, is going to make that other person want to connect and interact with you more. It doesn't have to be conventions, it can be panels like this, it can be networking events. Really, anywhere they can see your face and see whatever you're working on is branded, right? So,
And go wherever it works for you. Again, your model definitely is opposite of mine.
correct.
The 40-year-old housewives are not at the convention.
Right.
I laughed at a guy that told me I should be at MomoCon handing out, CDs of my game.
So my community, it's a little fragmented right now, just because our last release was in Europe. While there is Twitter, a large bulk of my fans are actually interacting with me on Twitch instead. Not only am I a streamer, but I'm very active in it. In fact, my day job is doing simulations to game with, so I'm very active on that side. I also have Twitch integration. It's something for the community to look forward to, so that's another reason why I've been very active. I've got Twitch streamers making cameos in the game. In fact, every single trailer I've done since MomoCon 2016 had at least some appearance of some Twitch streamer somewhere in there. So it's been a very active direction I've been going, and it continues to grow, and I can tell I've got quite a few who are just waiting for just give me the green light, just give me the green light, come on, I want to start showing it off. In fact, there's one person who unfortunately wanted to challenge Ron at MomoCon for the title, but had to leave on Sunday. Who has been very active and has been giving me a lot of personal feedback, so he's going to be one who's going to be sneaking in a cameo, even though he's relatively smaller numbers. Sometimes it's the ones who are doing the most, that are going to be the most active, the most vocal, who are worth it more than the big numbers, and it's keeping track of that on the ones who are really showing the passion and showing that involvement. In fact, my West Coast champion is someone I found who was a competitive Melee player who is trying to save up money to go to MomoCon next year to challenge Ron for the crown at MomoCon, who is our current 3 tournament champion so far, so that's why I keep bringing him up.
By the way, this guy, there was an award for showing the game off the most events. This guy won it like last year.
He's everywhere.
Yeah, because he is everywhere and getting his game in front of everybody.
And I want to inject one thing too. So there's 2 types of community, and there is your players, but figuring out how to grow your local game dev community, I can't tell you how important that is. No matter how brilliant you are, whether a solo developer or just 2 or 3 people, if you're working on the game by yourselves and you're not reaching out to people, you're losing in the long run. And you should find value in the short run, but the value is really going to come over time with the connections, because you're not, it's like, let's say you're rolling the dice or you're playing the lottery with your time, is what it is, okay? You're playing the lottery with your time, you're not going to win tonight, you're not going to win the next night, you're not going to, and so forth. But if you never show up, you're never going to win. And over time, you're eventually, something's going to pay off. I have a friend in England that's the only guy I know that does something similar to I, and our feedback to each other and sharing info is, you know, is just critical for me. Especially when it comes to dealing with, you know, he's my only person I can ask, is that distributor treating you like this, and vice versa, you know? You want to make your connections. You want to show up. You know, start showing up. This man created something out of nothing. The indie cluster has been amazing to watch that grow over time, and he's done it by showing up. And in fact, correct me if I'm wrong, is it Southern Pride that you're going to be at that gave you the space, the big space, and you didn't you get a break on it? You didn't really pay for it like you had last year or whatever, right?
Oh, no, we didn't have to pay last year either. But
this year you get a much better space.
Yeah, they're growing, and they want us to grow with them. So you know, when you develop relationships like that, you know, people help out, people get you in, and it becomes a community thing because we all want to be able to succeed. I'm
at game 8 of Clutter, and my distributors treat me differently now than they did back when I was just at the 3rd game or the first one or whatever. They know I'm going to be, even though the market's shrinking, they know I'm still going to be there in 6 months, as opposed to somebody that's got a new game or somebody that, you know, jumps around in their games or whatever. So there's something to be said for consistency, showing up, and growing this type of stuff as well as your community.
Alright, so basically what I'm getting from all of you, from that question that we all now forgotten where we went from, being able to, let's see, what's it? Yeah, effective means of to reach your audience. So being a part of the Steam community, playing around with the Facebook ever-growing and changing algorithms, putting a lot of social media content on Twitter, such as video and photo content of your current things, being active on updating, as well as doing branding overlays and deliberate feedbacks, getting people to engage with, I guess, what you're doing. And let's see, what is it? Oh, and being around like-minded people that network with, which is why we're here, right? You know, and testimonies. Again, Twitter, and for the indie arcades like cameos, influencers, streamers, just giving more feedback of the game itself. Now we're going to get very close to the end, but this is a quick question for you guys. Then I want to play musical chairs with the newer indie developers so they can introduce themselves. Okay? So this just 1 minute. Okay? What kind of tools do you need to actually further your promoting of your current brand, game, or community? Hit it. What kind of tools you need?
So definitely a willingness to learn. You know, that's definitely important. Being flexible and adapting your strategy to see what works and what doesn't. Sticking with it is definitely important too, because nothing is built overnight. Shameless plug, based on Abby left. I don't know where she is, but the DeKalb Entertainment Expo, I did a presentation on how to market your game. I'm actually expanding that into an online course, and I have a code for everybody that's here to like knock off it next to nothing. You know, so more than happy to share that with you. I have some cards. It goes from social media to brand management, the whole nine, really short and effective with action items, you know, because it is difficult. Like, even though this is my profession, you know, getting out on social media, being consistent, having a content schedule is challenging, especially if you have other stuff you're doing besides just working on your game. You know, like I'm sure most of you do, except for you, Joe. Few exceptions to that. But in terms of the most important tool to have is you have to have a tenacity to stick with it and know that results will come eventually, but they won't come at all if you don't do anything.
Right, Joe?
So I'm not sure it's a tool, but the thing I've developed over time, there's two things. And actually I learned this when I was a young person. I learned this is right from my dating life. I learned that I was only successful by being charming in small doses. And but anyways, applying it to this is I actually introduce myself to anybody through Facebook. I think I'm close to 4,000 now for people, and it's only because I've been trying to grow it to just see what it does. And I think it's partly responsible for the 3,000 I made last Christmas. But I also go to game devs. I now friend people on LinkedIn and vice versa, and I've had a couple nice things pay off there that are interesting. So I won't get into detail. But what I do now is actually, once I friend someone, the very first thing I come back and I say, hey, I'm celebrating getting rid of clutter, getting Clutter 1000 out the door. I'm giving away free copies of my early games. Would you like one? And I can immediately judge by their response whether I can unfriend them, unfollow them, I don't care, etc. You know. But one thing you should develop is learning how to say hello to anybody. And I think Ron will back me up. Ron's got this handshake that'll break my hands all the time. But he practiced it, and he went. Ron used to sit like I sit as an old man, and now Ron sits man tall. This is the change he's gone through in 5 years, and just reaching out to anybody. And when you do, one trick is, again, it comes back to service with nature. Don't always look for what it's in it for you. You're much better off trying to figure out, what's in it for them on level. And I'm not always that good. I ramble. There's horrible stuff, but the more I'm in the focus of what I can do to help you, that's how you win the lot. That gives you a free number in the lottery ticket, paying off down the road. So.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the more you give, definitely the more you receive. So that's something important to keep in mind. I don't really know if we're listening like tools, like programs or something like that, or just ideology. But I think that one important thing that I've learned in life, and especially being creative, is not being afraid to fail. I think there's a lot of social pressures and even things systematically that kind of punish failure, but it's not necessarily the best environment to create something and to watch it grow. So sometimes you just got to get out there, and especially when you're young, you do it, while you're free, or do it if someone's offering, whatnot. But that's definitely the ecosystem you want to be in to grow faster, to get to that next level. Also, well, I guess at the same time, the internet is probably the best tool, that in the line, because this is perfect time to do whatever that you guys want to do right now, whether it's watching something or sharing something, following something, promoting something. Everything's, you probably get it for a lot of things for free, even though they might not be free. But there's generally ways to do things that wasn't there years ago, and then just the willingness to learn. YouTube, as far as I know, is still free. That's the best school I ever went to. Really, I actually paid to go to college. Yeah, and that's basically what everybody else said. It's all about heart. So.
Yeah, like they said, social media, willingness to adapt and evolve, and find out where your audience is, and the best way, as we've already talked about briefly, just going out and showcasing, not being the, I'm going to develop it and make sure it's perfect, and then start showing people. You need to be out as soon as you can let people hop in and play it. I first showed Emotional Rift back when it was like a week before that deadline was when I had the first full gameplay cycle done. And it was definitely rough, but from that I've learned a lot, moved in a much more positive direction. I have people coming back every convention, eager to check out the new change. It's continuing to go in that way, and I'm picking directions based on the feedback instead of the, I think this will be right, I think this will be the way to go, and you won't find out until you actually get someone blind who's hopping in with no experience on where you're going or what you're doing or how far you've been in it, and they actually sit down and play and get the full fresh experience. In fact, your fresh experiences are where your biggest money makers are, because most people are going to only play for a short period of time. It's the ones who fall in love that are going to play longer, so you need to make sure that the ones who are hopping in can actually stay through and go past that initial threshold.
All right, and the last part is
Panel takeover.
all right. This is where the indie guys come in. Come on in, look, all the new indie people. Come on in. This is where you guys are going to introduce yourselves. Call it out. Get them off the stage. Yes, you can stay on. You're there. Represent. Everybody clap for the new indie guys. Woo! Come on. And also clap for everybody else who was on the panel. All right, you guys, some of you can stand, you know, I didn't plan all this. So, let's introduce ourselves. These four. Tell me who you are.
We're the Mop Boys. We made Mop Boy. We're still making Mop Boy.
It's over there.
Yeah.
Yep. You got a demo out? And tell us about your game, like a quick 1 minute spiel.
Alright, so our game is basically like half top-down, like platformer, RPG style game, and half like 2D side-scrolling platformer. And it's basically about this kid who like lives in a restaurant owned by his family. And upstairs you're like hanging out with your family and like doing more RPG type stuff, and then downstairs you're fighting monsters and just having a good time.
Nice. So what about you two?
We're Brooklyn Studios. We created Kingdom of Guru, the game
Okay.
over there. It's available on mobile for iOS.
What is it? Like, what kind of game is it?
So Kingdom of Crew is a 2D platformer, but we also introduced the aspect of racing. So in the game you have a set of twins, and of course as twins you're going to battle it out and you want to win, you want to be the best. So during the race you can throw things at each other, sabotage your twin to try to get to the goal first.
All right, what's your game?
I'm Unlimited, doing Emotional Rift, and it is a platform brawler game starring a few other indie developers I know, as well as the Emotional siblings from Mini Shuffle, and it's I'll be setting it up in just a moment. So.
All right, so main thing that you guys are experiencing as far as development, like what is the main thing that you're like trying to battle right now as young indie developers?
School. And just trying to find the time, because sometimes we'll have weekends where we'll just treat it like a game jam, and we'll go all out and just spend a bunch of time on it, and then the other part of our life happens, so take a little break. But
All right, and you two?
multiplayer and creating levels.
Nice. And what about you?
I'm through most of the bumpy road, and I'm just at the content generation phase, so it's more of finding the unique stuff that really accents the style and is something that just isn't really in the genre that people have never really looked at or considered as an effective method. Like the thing I just finished last night was an orb that creates a danger field where there's little sparks flying around it, and the sparks just kind of create a no trespassing zone. And the one I'm creating right now is like a bear trap where if you step on it, it's going to pump you up and hold you for a while other people get their hits.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Everybody who was on the panel earlier, I'm sorry, we're going to call you out. You can come back in the front. Sorry to kick you out. Yeah, bring that chicken over too. You can bring the chicken over. No, you guys stay. I want you all to hear. All together. Come on. Where's everybody?
Taking a call.
Yeah. Oh, it's taking a call? All right. Joe's on call, you know. He's Batman out there. So, thank you guys for being here. And any guys, do you have any like quick questions? If not, I do encourage you guys to, okay, one sec. If not, I do encourage you guys to go ahead and when this posts on YouTube, interact and put them questions in. Any live questions here? We got one.
Yeah, just one quick question. What is the platform? I know it might be a multiple list of different platforms they use to develop games, but if I wanted to learn more about that, what would be a good platform for someone starting from zero? After they find out about that platform, then I go down to Wormhole on YouTube. What would be the platforms that you guys use to develop what you guys make?
I would say if you're just starting out, probably the easier ones to get into is Unity or Game Maker.
Okay.
And those are the two indie, focused platforms that have endless amount of tutorials and information, whether their own communities or like YouTube forums and stuff like that.
Okay. You said Game Maker and what else?
Unity.
Unity. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's like C#.
Pico 8. It's like much more limited, but it's used a lot in game jams and stuff, and it's a lot easier to pick up. So if you're starting from, maybe that would be a good thing to look at.
Okay.
All right, time for one more question, and then we're gonna close it out. Come on up. Hey, what's your name?
I'm Karen with Pickup Interactive.
Oh, there we go.
Alright, plug. Alright, my question is, how do you turn game development, whatever that you're working on, things like that, into content for branding yourself and things along those lines? Like any tips and tricks?
People like to see you build things. I've noticed a lot of people will watch YouTube for hours just watching someone do something else. And I know it's helpful to me watching someone else make mistakes and then fix them. So I think that's really good content. I see a lot of views on it.
You can also ask your community, going to Joe's point, like where he was like, starting debates by asking questions. Put up one, color scheme for a character or a level, and then put up another one and ask the community to decide like which one you like better.
Yeah, that's
You'd be
cool.
surprised, name this character. What should this look like? Engaging them in that way. First of all, you get meaningful feedback. Second of all, your fans feel like they're invested in the development process, so it's a two-way street. And it's content.
One of the more best things about this community is so family oriented. Everyone's kind of struggling the same. So adopting what everybody else is doing, I would say do that like as soon as possible. My first time showing off at MomoCon, there was so many developers from out of state, out of the country and whatnot, and that was like my first time really showing, looking like a developer. I had a small little laptop, I had my business card, I was doing what I thought was cool, but everyone had these giant monitors, speakers, that had like branding things, had like candy, signs and everything like that. I'm like, okay, yep, I got a couple hours, it's Thursday, Friday, I'm good to go. So kind of like using what everybody else is doing and then even asking people. Because, people love giving that information out and everything like that. A lot of people have certain characters or certain things that they might be able to write a story or a small little book, or people might have toys that can be a part of their game that they can sell and stuff like that. So each game is different, but basically it's kind of use what's around.
I would also throw in a willingness to take risks and try new stuff. Be ready to just toss it away if it isn't working, but sometimes that unique thing is what makes you stand out, and everyone's going to know you for that unique thing. Whether it's just something that's always there, like I put stories in genres that don't have stories, and people are excited about it because now they have a reason of why am I this character. And it can be just as simple as that, of just putting something that isn't there before.
Thank you, everybody. Everyone give them a good round of applause.